Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's FBC Radio Live. It is Monday morning. Week 6 is almost in the books. It's October 17th, 2022. And very, very interesting Sunday in the NFL, to say the least. For the first time since they've all been in the league, John, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes all lost a game on the same exact day, which, again, based on their success is not hard to imagine. But it was certainly, as you said right before we got on the air, could be quite a devastating day for folks in their knockout pools this season. But interesting stuff. And that game between the Bills and the Chiefs, I think really lived up to the hype.
It sure did. Let's just get it out of the way and have them play a best-of-7 series to decide who wins the AFC. Although there are teams in the AFC besides the Bills and Chiefs playing good football right now, and one of them is the New England Patriots, who are even at 3-3 and heading in the right direction. I think Cincinnati's heading in the right direction as well. But if the Denver Broncos win tonight, again, it's a big if, they're a 5-point underdog at the Chargers, but if they are able to win tonight, 14 of the league's 32 teams, that's 44%, will have 3 wins. I mean, parity is certainly king in the NFL. Parity, not parity.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of parity out there these days. But no, look, I mean, and it's crazy to think how 3-3 isn't the same for every team. So we look at right now the Buccaneers, for example, and we'll get to them a little bit more later. At 3-3, but the vibe isn't quite as strong as you mentioned, the Patriots, who are now sitting at 3-3, and you're like, wait a minute. Is this team pretty good? Have we misjudged them just a little bit heading into the season? But obviously the game we're here to talk about tonight, first and foremost, is that Bills and Chiefs game. And we saw the Bills obviously outduel the Chiefs. And look, I thought that they were the better team coming into the game. I thought they were the better team for the most part yesterday. And I thought Josh Allen really played a much better game than Patrick Mahomes. And I still can't get over that that horse-like gallop and leap over the Chiefs defender there late in the game. That was something to witness. That was something nice. But no, the game was very entertaining, certainly based on what we saw earlier in the day. I think any sort of competent football would have served us well, and that's certainly what we got Sunday afternoon. And really, like I said, this is a Bills team that needs to get over the hump, and in order to get over the hump, you have to win games like this. And we saw them for the most part. I thought they like I said, across the board, just kind of looked like the better team.
Yeah, I think their defense is better. And that doesn't even include until they get back Tre'Davious White, who's a top 5 corner. Once he gets back after that knee injury a year ago, provided he's close to 100%, I think that secondary will be that much better. Their front 7 is good. They can put pressure on the quarterback without having to blitz. Von Miller, look, this is a generational player. I think we sometimes forget how great this guy is. And on offense, they've got enough of a running game, and that includes the quarterback running the football, that it augments that passing game. And look, that game-winning touchdown pass to Dawson Knox, oh my God, that was gorgeous. I mean, just over the outstretched defender's hand and just in the right spot where only Dawson Knox could catch it. Absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, that leaping run that he had yesterday, man, he's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I know people like lose their you-know-what over Patrick Mahomes, but Josh Allen plays with as much like swag as any quarterback I've ever seen. He just does it in a somewhat different way. Like he's kind of, does it make sense? It's almost like a Yogi Berra statement. He's quietly arrogant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he's not,
well, he
just does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why the comparison with John Elway to me is so, that's how Elway played.
Well, look,
go out there, do crazy things, and then just go back to the huddle and lead the troops again.
And if you want to talk about doing things that other players don't do, then again, stuff like that leap and that gallop, the just when he picks up steam as a runner, it's really unlike any other, because Lamar Jackson is elusive, very he can move around, he can make you miss, that type of thing. But when Josh Allen gets running with like a full head of steam with any sort of area in front of him, I don't know what it is. Again, it's like a Clydesdale, just
Yeah,
galloping like with those long strides, and it's like it's incredible to watch because you can't imagine someone of his uh, stature and physique would also be able to throw the ball as well as he does in the pocket, and that's something that we've seen him improve tenfold each and every season. And again, we talked about it leading up to this game, and kind of whenever the conversation pops up about Patrick Mahomes being so far and away this unbelievable quarterback, and look, he's a great quarterback. I've never said he isn't, but I've always kind of fought back at this uh, uh, incredible need to elevate him far above where he should be at this point. And case in point, look at Josh Allen. And I honestly don't know, and I'll continue to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes. I will, because again, I do hold, winning and the MVP and obviously going and winning a Super Bowl. I hold that in a very high regard. But John, if the Bills go out and win a Super Bowl this year, and look, I understand that they have a history of losing 4 in a row, but this is not that Bills team, and this is 35, 30 years later. Like, if they go out and win, and Josh Allen right now, I mean, you'd have to consider him the front runner for MVP. They go out and win a Super Bowl, and he's an MVP. What's the case for Mahomes over Josh Allen? Really?
right. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, they will have each won one Super Bowl. Granted, Mahomes had gone to a second Super Bowl, but
do you really want to remember that as an accomplishment playing in that game? You know what I mean?
Well, not necessarily, but I always push back when people say, well, they lost the Super Bowl, because I did this with Brady, defending Brady, when people say, well, Montana's greater because he never lost the Super Bowl. I go, well, was it better to lose in the conference championship?
No, but I don't know if it's necessarily knocking Mahomes for I would never knock someone for getting to the Super Bowl, but that was again, depending, unless you talk to a Chiefs fan or whatever. I mean, that was one of the worst Super Bowl performances of all time, and that's not me being kind of a hater. I mean, it is what it is, and I know Chiefs fans hate to hear it, but no matter how many dazzling, goofy, off balance throws, incompletions that he makes, it doesn't make up for the fact that it was just a bad game. So really, I think, because like the pushback has always been, well, it's always been compared to Brady. So like one Super Bowl isn't going to cut it. Hell, Patrick Mahomes can win 4 Super Bowls and he's still going to be off pace. You know what I mean? So like, but the difference between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes is razor thin. And really the weight of it is the MVP and the Super Bowl win, which is, you know what, John? It was 4 years ago now. Like, it wasn't last season. And over the last couple of years, Patrick Mahomes hasn't outpaced every quarterback in the league. Hell, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and we'll get to those two in a little bit, were number 1 and number 2 last year in terms of statistics and every measurable metric you could use to measure a quarterback. So, the perception that, again, Mahomes is lapping the competition is false.
Right.
And I think the more we watch Josh Allen, the more it becomes apparent.
Still, again, Mahomes 2 interceptions yesterday. One early in the game, one late in the game.
Two bad ones. This wasn't a off Tyreek Hill's hand or something. I mean, no. The first one, you anytime you throw an interception in the end zone, it's going to be hard pressed to find a reason not to be the quarterback's fault. And that last one was it was lazy and kind of just a poor throw. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and the second interception, again, he's looking one way, throwing sidearm, and sometimes that's a necessity, but oftentimes it's not, and he still goes there, and it leads to an interception, which ices the game, and then led us to Tony Romo saying that the Bills should take an intentional safety from the Kansas City 25-yard line, which just blew my mind. But Tony Romo sometimes does speak before he thinks. Although he kind of predicted the score of the game early.
He was dead on.
He was dead on. He goes, they said 24-20. He didn't say who was going to win, but he said it's not going to be that high-scoring game. And he had a good point, because both teams are playing too high safety. They're daring you to run. They're taking away big plays.
That's when Tony Romo is at his best. When he is kind of muted a bit when it comes to the fanboyism. And again, we see it a lot. We hear it a lot, especially with guys like Mahomes. He gets a little too goofy. But when he sits there and goes and diagnoses plays and tells you why these certain things were going to happen, there was play early in the game, ineligible receiver downfield. I'll give him credit. He right on top of it was like, no, that's actually on the quarterbacks because that's a play that's designed to be a quick pass. So therefore, the linemen are playing it as if that's the case. So the longer Mahomes held on to the ball, that created that situation and that penalty. So when he's on, and I'm the first to jump on Tony Romo because again, I feel like he just gets a little bit too over the top. I thought he was really good yesterday. In a game that I thought I was going to very quickly going to have to turn off the sound because it would just be insufferable. No, I think he again was at his very best, and that's the Tony Romo I really like. But to get back to the game, I look at a team that I understand the Kansas, and this is kind of the talking point with Chiefs fans right now is well they had this, that, and the other missing. Well, okay. Yeah, so did Buffalo. They had two of their best secondary players and Jordan Poyer, who drove 15 hours because he wasn't cleared to fly to play in that game. So, the Bills were limited too, and they still held that Chiefs offense, which over the course of 6 games, John, how convinced are you that this Chiefs offense is truly elite? Because if we're looking at it, their best games came against a team I've clearly overrated, certainly the defensive side of the ball in the Bucs, and really some of these other games against the Raiders. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to downplay their opponents, but I'm still wondering where that big play part of their offense is going to come from, because it's not going to come from Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, he makes some nice plays, but it's not consistent. He's going to drop a few. You just don't have that element without Tyreek Hill. And we saw that yesterday kind of really in full force when it came down to having to move the ball downfield and just not being able to. So, no, certainly concerning. I mean, just, when you're the Chiefs, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're probably going to meet the Buffalo Bills again. But I think there are some underlying issues with this team that might add some difficulty down the road, especially if they face the Bills again.
Yeah, I mean, you look at offensively, they had a monster game against Tampa, monster game against Arizona. They put some points on the board, obviously, against the Raiders. But the Raiders and Chargers, they beat both at home, very close games that could have been flipped on one play. And look, the more I watch the NFL, it seems like every game can be flipped on one play. That's how close some of these teams are. But, pick six by Justin Herbert, as they're about to go in for a go-ahead score, flip that game. And then we know what the Raiders did, totally screwing up down the stretch. I mean, the Chiefs could very easily be 2-4, and they would be the talk of the NFL at that moment. Now, of course, they're 4-2, and we still believe they're a strong Super Bowl contender. But I think you saw yesterday that Buffalo's defense is better, and quite frankly, right now at this moment, what is this, October 17th of 2022? Josh Allen's playing quarterback better than anybody in the NFL at this moment. And if that keeps up, and my only thing with Josh Allen is he has a tendency to get a little overexcited at times. I didn't see that yesterday. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need the quarterback to be a little bit more into it, like maybe, he's like the anti-Jay Cutler. It looks like he almost cares too much and is into it so much, and his teammates love him. If he just holds back a little bit, it's going to be tough to stop. So, I definitely give the edge over the Bills. I did going into the game. Heck, they were a 2.5-point favorite at Kansas City for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And they covered. And look,
yeah.
I mean, that's something too. And to your point, like we've seen in the past where Josh Allen tends to get a little bit too high or too low. And we could have seen that spiral out of control right off that first drive. I mean, you're driving down the field, and a miscommunication on an RPO leads to no points in the red zone. You're thinking, oh boy, this is the type of game where, a team like Kansas City, although they may be limited, they win these type of games because they've been there, done that. Buffalo, on the other hand, who hasn't, may have a tendency to kind of let that get to them and kind of ruin things. Fortunately for them, their defense came through and obviously made a play, and the rest we saw play out as it did. But no, I don't disagree with anything of what you're saying. I think right now the Chiefs are. Look, they're still one of the best teams in the AFC. We're not pretending like they aren't. But I do think that there are issues where I don't see that with Buffalo. Like, I look at Buffalo and I just see, just across the board a team. And we talked about it going into the season. This team was meant to win a Super Bowl this year. So of course they're gonna look the part, especially with the players that they brought in and the quarterback that they have. Doesn't mean that they're going to look the part next year or the year after. That's the beauty of the NFL. But right now, absolutely, they look the part. They look like a better team, a more complete team than Kansas City. And outside of Kansas City, right now, I'm not seeing a clear and obvious obstacle for Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl. Now, that's not to say that there aren't several teams that could win on any Sunday in the playoffs. We see it every single year in the NFL. But right now, I'd be hard pressed to make a case for a team inside the AFC that's going to slow, including Kansas City. Like if they meet again, this isn't a case like last year where it's like, okay, Buffalo won this round, but I'm coming out of that game feeling pretty good about getting it. It's not quite that. Like we said going into this year, I thought Kansas City took a step back, still one of the elite teams in the conference, but I thought the gap closed significantly between them and everyone else in the AFC, especially Buffalo, who looks like they've jumped the gap there, so to speak.
Remember, for about a decade, we always asked, who's the second best coach in the NFL after Bill Belichick, right? It was, one year it was John Harbaugh. Was it Andy Reid? Was it Mike Tomlin? Like, who's the third best team in the AFC if we've got the Bills 1 and the Chiefs 2? Like, I don't know, because the North and the South, there isn't a team in either division with more than 3 wins. So it's just like total mediocrity. The Jets have 4 wins. The Jets have as many wins as the Chiefs. And if the Chargers go out and win tonight, they'll have 4 wins. So the AFC, which looked like the stronger conference at the beginning of the season, has kind of come back to the pack a little bit. So I don't know who the third best team is in the AFC at this moment.
Could it be the New England Patriots, John?
Why the hell not? Let's throw it in there. I'm getting zappy fever.
I'll tell you what. Talk to me in a couple weeks, because I'm gonna temper my excitement just a little bit here, because again, I don't want to get a little bit too overboard. But we'll talk about the Patriots here in just a minute. So go ahead.
2 weeks away from that big matchup between the Jets. I mean, the Jets could be 5-2, and the Patriots 4-3 when they meet at the Meadowlands in 2 weeks. That would be a really big game. Obviously, the Patriots play the Bears next Monday night in Foxborough. There's never a layup in the NFL. We can't, because it certainly looked like Tampa had a layup against Pittsburgh. That didn't happen. The Packers were more than a touchdown favorite the last 2 weeks against the Giants, and the Jets lost both games. So there's never really a layup in the NFL, but they should be able to get to 4-3 next Monday night, as at that point, Bill Belichick will surpass the great George Halas, Papa Bear himself, second all-time on the all-time coaching wins list. And I think that Belichick should wear a fedora on Monday night in honor of Papa Bear.
As long as it's not that awful red Patriots sweatshirt, I don't care what Bill Belichick wears.
Yeah. No, not that's the one that I don't like. You're right.
There's never been something so non-football related that put my stomach in such a bad mood the moment I saw it. The second he walked out in that game, I was like, oh no. And we're talking about Super Bowl 42, folks, for anyone who might be a little too young to remember.
Can I tell a quick story?
Sure.
About a 30-second story. I'll be quick.
I'll tell you.
So okay. Sunday,
go ahead.
That Sunday morning, I own a restaurant at that point. This is obviously February 2008. So we're all psyched for the game. I'm behind the grill cooking. We're all excited. A friend of mine comes in with a Steve Nelson shirt, and I love Steve Nelson. Mm-hmm. He was a great guy to deal with when I covered the team. He puts on the red Steve Nelson jersey on me, my friend, who was a cop at the time, real macho guy. And I'm like, oh no, the red jersey, not good. I mean, the Patriots went to a Super Bowl, wore these red jerseys, and lost 46-10. At that moment, I'm like, I don't know if I feel good about this game. And then, 12 hours later, we were just sitting there going, what the hell happened?
Yeah, that's a pain that I will. In my final thoughts, I'll be drifting away, and that game will pop back into my subconscious. I could be absolutely out of my mind, lost every sort of instinct in my life. You know what I mean? But that game will, in my final thoughts, pop into my mind. So, all right, let's do a little bit of fun, because we have a lot of stuff to kind of cover. So we're gonna do a little buy or sell. So this is how it's gonna work, John. I'm going to just give you a statement. Just very simply, you can tell me if you buy or sell it. So we'll start right where we kind of just left off here. And I'm going to say, not only are they the best team in the AFC, but the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the NFL. Buy or sell it?
Oh, I'm buying that. I had them number 1 in our power rankings last week, and nothing they did yesterday makes me change my mind. So I'd say Buffalo is the best team in all of football.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I agree with that, and we do our top 5 teams on Full Press NFL podcast every Wednesday, which we will do again this week. And there might be a change at the top of my top 5 team list. But yeah, I mean, obviously the one argument being the Eagles, who are still undefeated, who beat the Cowboys last night. But again, based on what we've seen, especially the last couple of weeks from the Bills, it's hard to argue that they are not the best team in the league, not just the AFC. So next are the Packers, the Green Bay Packers, in trouble of I'd say missing the playoffs, but long-term issues. Are they in trouble, buy or sell?
I plead the fifth. No, I'm selling on that. I think they can recover. They've got to win next week in Washington, because then they play Buffalo on a Sunday night. Buffalo's coming off a bye week, so at best they'll be 4-4 when they get to their bye week. I think they can still recover, maybe get to 10-7, which would sneak you into the playoffs. Some of these issues, I think, and Rodgers talked about it yesterday in his post-game press conference, and I agree wholeheartedly with him, is that they've got to simplify things on offense. I mean, you see what Green Bay does on offense. The play takes forever to get from the sideline to the huddle. He gets to the line of scrimmage. Of course, he has to show us all that he's the smartest guy, not just in the NFL, but on planet Earth. And he looks through the play and maybe he changes it and the play clock dribbles down and then they call a timeout. Or he's trying to draw someone offside. Or way before that, he's trying to get the other team with 12 men on the field. Just go out and play with more pace. And I think that they can be okay. The alarming thing with Green Bay is, look, their offense is terrible. Their defense has not been that much better. And then, oh, by the way, their special teams have been bad. But I'm not quite selling yet. If they go into Washington and lose again, then they're in trouble.
Yeah, I'd say my hand is on the button. My finger is very gently rubbing the. Okay, now it's getting a little bit R-rated, but you know what I'm saying. I'm getting a little bit
too much.
Yeah, a little bit too
TMI
edgy.
there.
Yeah, a little bit too much information. But you know what I'm saying. Like my finger is circling the button, ready to hit the sell button or buy button. I'm confusing myself here because there are issues that are alarming, and a lot of them stem from issues I raised prior to the season. Is where is their offense going to come from? And so far, the answer is I don't know. And we're 6 weeks into the season. That's a problem, and that's where I think the most concerning thing is, because, quite frankly, Minnesota's playing some pretty good football, and if they meet again later in the season, or when they meet again later in the season, I'm not at this point. I have no confidence in picking the Packers to win that game. And you mentioned Buffalo. I have no confidence in picking them to win that game either. So, I'm very close to hitting the buy button, because again, it is alarming, some of the issues. And to your point, I thought their defense was going to be a lot better than what it has been, and it just hasn't been as solid. Special teams isn't bad though.
Yeah, yet another
ironically
block punt. They had a block punt for a touchdown yesterday, the special team, so they keep on their merry way.
Yeah.
When it was still somewhat of a game. No, they're just a mess. Like, nothing's working out for them. Defensively, they're letting the Jets go up and down the field a couple times when it was still a game. But, they've got to win next week in Washington, and then good luck going to Buffalo on a Sunday night with a team coming off a bye. Maybe you catch Buffalo a little flat after the nice emotional win in Kansas City, and you get a bye week. Maybe the Bills will
I don't know.
But that's probably not going to happen.
I
think Green Bay is somewhat built to deal with that offense, because Buffalo doesn't really run the football other than Josh Allen, so that might work out okay. But right now, the Packers are a middling team at best.
All right, next. The Buccaneers are not a Super Bowl contender. Buy or sell?
I'm buying that. As much as it's tough to say that when Tom Brady's the quarterback, it just doesn't look like they're all together. And again, it's still 6 weeks into the season. They can turn this around at some point. But he just doesn't look like he's happy, shall we say that? And I think the more I think of Tom Brady is, I always call him a sociopath, like Jordan and Kobe and Bonds. I think he plays better happy than he does miserable. And I don't know what's going on off the field, but on the field, he doesn't seem happy either. They've got some real issues there. Coaching is one of them. It's tough to ever bet against him, because, he can light it up, and next thing you know, they're 7-3 from 3-3. But I just don't get the sense that they're a true Super Bowl contender, because I think there's some better teams in the NFC than we anticipated. Philadelphia is better than we thought. The Giants, Minnesota, and there are some teams that play pretty well against Tampa Bay, including the Rams, who are a mess themselves, but they seem to match up well with them. So I would say I'm buying that they're not a Super Bowl contender.
I'd say the only reason I'm selling is because of time, because I agree with everything that you say. I can't after 20. I can't sell a team not being a Super Bowl contender, or I can't buy a team not being a Super Bowl. I keep confusing myself. I'm really gonna have to work on this by the time we do it next week.
Segment. It's a debut. It's a debut segment, Ian,
yeah.
So got to work out the kinks.
But I should be able to figure this out.
It's true.
I should be able to figure this out. I'm a relatively, I have intelligence, I guess. But anyways,
you're older now. You're
wiser.
Older since Friday, so
wiser. Yes. I've aged quite a bit since this weekend. No, no. Look, I can't right now buy that, because the quarterback is still Tom Brady, and I do believe that the least of their issues is the quarterback. And I know there's some uproar about him. Again, just like there is every week. But to your point, the coaching is bad. I mean, the comments made by Todd Bowles about this team still being stuck in their Super Bowl, like that, to me, I'm like, what? It wasn't a problem last year. I don't think it all of a sudden pops up a year after. You know what I mean? So I felt that's kind of a bailout answer. And quite frankly, I think the coaching has been poor across the board. I mean, the inefficiency that this team has in first down runs is mind-boggling. Any sort of advanced metric that you look at sees how ineffective it is, and how really just I mean, I'm sitting there watching that game, and there's no creativity to the offense. It's poorly coached. There's a lot of poor the discipline is poor at best. And then you look at like that play where it looked like Brady was the only one who knew it was a pass, and everyone thought it was a run. So Brady rolls out to throw a pass, and no one's running a route. Or I mean, the best pass he threw was that deep ball to Mike Evans down the field, and it's like he was, I mean, literally hit the second he released the ball, because the left guard was just an absolute revolving door. And then on top of that, John, I was laughing because I've almost never seen this before. On the quarterback sneak, that offensive line got swallowed up in a half second. Like the second that ball was snapped, they were just covered by the Steelers' front seven. And I was just like, oh my God, like what are you supposed to do? So, like I said, normal situation, normal say I'd definitely buying them as not a Super Bowl contender. But at this point, I just can't do that right now with Brady still under center. And I do believe that he's still playing very well, but this right now is very concerning for a team that I don't think is really that good right now. And which is, again, far cry from what I thought going into the season. So.
Yeah, and again, the schedule should help, but we thought that was going to happen yesterday, too, at Pittsburgh. And then you get Mitch Trubisky, who comes in and lights it up in the second half after Kenny Pickett gets concussed. I mean, so that was just a weird game. But it's tough to bet against Brady, absolutely, because they can reel off 4 straight wins and look the part. And, again, they're in a division. Difference between them and Green Bay. Green Bay's in the division where Minnesota's for real. I don't see any other team in the NFC South that's for real. I mean, Carolina's in a total rebuild. New Orleans can't get out of its own way. And Atlanta's been a surprise. Mm-hmm. They beat San Francisco yesterday, but I still don't think they could beat Tampa Bay in a must-win game.
Yeah, and certainly down the stretch over the course of the next 11 games. Because remember, there is still 11 games yet to be played. Right. So, all right, next. Buy or sell. The Patriots are a playoff team in the AFC.
I'm going to buy that simply because, and again, I'm no Patriots honk, you know that, but I think that a lot of the teams have come back in the AFC. And then, like I said, you look at the South and the North, the only team that has a winning record in either of those divisions is Indianapolis, who's 3-2-1. And we saw how poorly they looked against Denver a week and a half ago on a Thursday night, and they barely beat Jacksonville. So you may only get one playoff team from each of those divisions, although I could still see Baltimore and Cincinnati getting in from the North. But, yeah, I'll say that they're a playoff contender. Absolutely. That Jets game in 2 weeks is going to be big. It was going to feel like 2010 all over again. Yeah, I mean, it's 2010 revisited.
Well,
but
I mean,
I'll buy that because their defense has played well. They're running the football effectively, and I don't think they have a quarterback controversy, but I think there's a quarterback conversation to be had by us.
Well, I mean, look, I think, and again, I think obviously people and I'm buying it as well because I think they're certainly played like a playoff contender. Because if we think Baltimore is a playoff contender, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to convince me that they're markedly better than the Patriots. I mean, their advantage comes at the quarterback position, of course. But
right.
Other than that, a lot of check marks, hit the Patriots. So, yeah, I mean, look, they're playing really good football. I think they're finding a good offensive rhythm. And I think people forget that before the injury and despite a couple, mistakes that Mac Jones is certainly going to have to clean up, he had one of his best games as a pro prior to getting injured against that Ravens team. So there are things that, again, Mac can do. I think he has a stronger arm. Bailey Zappi's instincts have been very impressive. And then that's something that I obviously, hold in quite a high regard because his ability to see the field seems to be ahead of where he should be, which is always a good thing. But it just kind of goes to show, John, I mean, how well people wanted to pile on Bill Belichick and blame Bill Belichick for this. And people were up in arms the second they drafted Cole Strange and traded back in the first round. Well, they traded back and they got Cole Strange, Bailey Zappi, and Marcus Jones. Okay. All three of those guys obviously had a huge, huge impact in yesterday's win. So I look at this team and I'm like, I think they might be the best coach team in the league. Certainly, I still think they are the best coach. They have the best coach, although, Andy Reid, is right up there. I'm not as big of a fan of John Harbaugh as some other people are, but I still think Bill Belichick's the best coach in the league, and we're seeing what he's doing to his own rhythm. I mean, despite everything that's said in the offseason, in the media, Bill Belichick just keeps doing what he does. And so far, it looks like it's working out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they've looked really good the last 2 weeks. And heck, they played Green Bay really tough the week before that, opportunity to win in overtime. Made a good showing against Baltimore. The turnovers were the killer against the Ravens. But yeah, they're trending in the right direction. I thought Cleveland was going to win yesterday. Look at Cleveland's 3 prior losses were by 1, 2, and 3 points. So Cleveland very easily could have been 5-0 going into that game. And the Patriots were in pretty much complete control from start to finish. That was an impressive win. So, yeah, I think they're certainly a playoff caliber team without question.
Yeah, and again, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make the playoffs just because of how the seeding and everything goes. But right now, just through 6 weeks, you're going to be it's hard for I think it might be impossible to find 6 teams better than the Patriots in the AFC right now. That's impressive for a team that, feels like we talk about other teams and, so many teams at 3-3, but there's different feels to each. I think the Patriots are certainly trending upward. And in hindsight, you look at some of their success against the Dolphins early in the season when Tua was healthy and they had their full complement of weapons and how well the defense played. And again, the Lions are the Lions, but they were still averaging 35 points a game heading into the game against the Patriots last week and then got shut out. So it's impressive across the board. So next, the Giants are an NFC contender. Buy or sell?
I'm going to buy that. I was high on the Giants before the season started. I mean, I thought one of the easiest prop bets was over 7 wins for the Giants. They're already at 5, partly because they had an incredibly easy schedule. But I think they've drafted really well the last couple of years, and they've built their team in a traditional sense of offensive and defensive lines, kind of like the way Philadelphia's done that. And that will get you playing consistently week in and week out. I'm still not sold on Daniel Jones, but look, Saquon Barkley is a stud. They have some talent at the skill positions. And Brian Daboll right now is the clear front runner for Coach of the Year. I mean, I know Nick Sirianni's 6-0, but they were a playoff team last year. The Giants were a total disaster last year, and here they are at 5-1. I'll buy into that. Why not? It's good to see the Giants and the Jets back in contention.
Yeah, back. Well, I mean, when were the Jets actually? Well, I guess 2010. I guess they were technically in contention, but no. I mean, think about this, John. Heading into the season, what was the talk about the NFC East? Aside from you buying into the Eagles, which I'll give you credit for. Reluctantly, I'll give you credit. I don't like doing that.
Thank you.
It brings me down. boost you. I don't like that. No, I look at the NFC East. I mean, the Cowboys obviously lost last night, but you have a team that's 6-0, a team that's 4-2, and another team that's 5-1. So we all thought this division could have a 7-9 division. Well, 7-10 or whatever. Math has really confused me today. So we're just gonna pretend I know what I'm talking about, folks. If you're listening, so we're looking at an NFC East division that looks clearly like the best division in football. They look like the division that the AFC West was supposed to be. So yeah, I'm buying it. And to Daniel Jones' credit, he's not turning the ball over. And in each of the 4 seasons, his turnover rate has almost halved to almost 2.0 to now it's 0.5. So he's playing elite level quarterback play from the turnover department at the very least. So I'm definitely
his first year in 2019, he was 25 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He looked pretty good. He regressed for 2 years, and now with Dayball, who obviously is a quarterback whisperer. I mean, look what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo. And look, the league loves that the NFC East is good because 4 of the 7 largest markets are in the NFC East. Mm-hmm. New York's the number 1 TV market. Philadelphia's 4th. Dallas is 6th, and Washington 7th. I mean, the league loves the fact that the NFC East is relevant again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, I mean, it's big money for him. So, and you get Dak Prescott coming back into the division very soon too. And not a moment sooner. What did I say last week? I think you've run out of viability for Cooper Rush. And what happened yesterday through 3 interceptions. So like I said, you squeezed about as much as you could get out of Cooper Rush. Now it's time for Dak Prescott to take over again. Hopefully for the Cowboys, that happens next week. All right. Last one, John. The Seattle Seahawks are the best team in the NFC West. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell that one. I mean, I think once the 49ers get healthy, they're marginally better.
But are they going to get healthy? That's the big
question mark. Yeah.
And I think that's what adds a little bit legitimacy to this, because I look at the Seahawks and I say, at least their offense. I mean, their offense is explosive. And the 49ers, without their defensive players, their stars, I mean, how good is that defense? Now, all of a sudden, Jimmy G doesn't look like a nice piece on a championship team. He looks like a quarterback that's limited on a mediocre team at best because they don't have the talent.
Yeah, without question. I mean, look, that division is wild too, right? You got 3 teams and a 2-4 Arizona team, which again lost yesterday at Seattle. Seattle's been one of the pleasant surprises this year. I talked about Brian Daboll potentially being coach of the year. Pete Carroll, if they get to 9-8, that would be a coach of the year type performance by Pete Carroll.
That could win the division, John.
It could win the division. We may have flipped back to like 2010 when I believe Seattle won the division at 7-9.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if it'll be that extreme. The Rams seem to still have some issues. Obviously, San Francisco is loaded with injuries, which they always are. It doesn't always seem like the 49ers are always
every single year.
From the quarterback on out. So, I mean, after a while, that becomes kind of a norm. Yeah, I mean, Seattle can contend. I don't think so. I think it may implode at some point. But, again, it kind of sums up the NFL. That division looks like the NFL. A lot of teams with 3 wins that we don't know much about. And on any given Sunday, quote the movie, anything's possible.
Yeah, anything is possible. I almost said anything is possible. That's my go-to for David Pasternak, who the Bruins. Little side note, 2-0 to start the season. Pretty excited for that. But like I said, I figure that's a nice little way to kind of cover a few of these topics. Real quick though, tonight, unfortunately, we get more Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson in prime time. However, fortunately, at least the Chargers are their opponent, and it's not a Bears and Broncos type situation. What are you looking for from the Chargers tonight? Because this is a team who, again, I think is very much disappointed early this season. Both of us were very high on the quarterback and the team in general, although neither of us like the coach, and I think that has certainly been an issue for this team early on. What's the problem? How do the Chargers kind of find their way back, and can they do it tonight against the Broncos?
They always have the wildest games, right? It always comes down to the final play, a bizarre call by the coach, whatever the case may be. I'm a huge fan of Justin Herbert. I think, they get some injuries along that offensive line, which will impact his play. Denver still has a really good defense. I mean, throughout this first 5 games, they've still played pretty darn good defense. It's just the offense has struggled. I would expect the Chargers to win a field goal type game. So if I'm giving out a pick against the spread, I would take Denver plus the 4.5 or plus 5 points. But, after what we saw on Sunday, would it surprise you if Denver wins and those two teams become 3-3 at that point? But enough of Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos on primetime. Is he going to show up to the game wearing his uniform? That's my only question, because I thought one of the coolest things yesterday was Joe Burrow showing up to the game wearing Jamar Chase's LSU shirt. That was cool. I mean, now he's the opposite of Russell Wilson, right? He's just naturally cool, and his teammates love him. That's like a cool move where Russell Wilson is just so tone deaf that he shows up in his own uniform.
Yeah, I just see again. I pile on Russell Wilson and fair or not. I mean, maybe it's not fair. Maybe I do go over a little over the top. I just, like I said, I just think he's limited in a sense. I think he's a really good quarterback. I mean, every quarterback in the NFL can make just about every throw at some point. You know what I mean? Like people will say oh, you can't look, they're an NFL quarterback. At the end of the day, there are 32 starters out of how many people that have tried to play the position across the country, the world, all that stuff. So these guys are good. Even the worst quarterback in the league is still a good quarterback, and certainly a lot better than your everyday guy that you see playing on the street or whatever. So these guys are capable of making plays. So, if Russell Wilson goes out and throws a deep arcing shot, which he's really good at and connects, it's going to be a really nice play, but it's not going to change the bigger picture about his limitations as a quarterback. That's what I think convinces people, or at least fools people, that, this Russell Wilson is tier 1 level. No, I mean, he may be tier 2, which isn't bad, and you can certainly win a Super Bowl. They obviously did, but pretending like he's a guy who's going to make up for a team's flaws, that's the issue. There's very few guys in the league that can do that and do it on a consistent basis. And I've never believed him to be one of them, because as we've seen since those back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, there has been more of a responsibility placed on his shoulders, and they haven't come close to replicating that success. So, I mean, I just hope we get an entertaining football game, and I'm hoping that the divisional matchup is going to do that, because I do like the Chargers, and I do think that they need to find something, because if not, I think you need to start turning your attention to someone like Sean Payton, because you need someone in there that's going to salvage this team. I mean, let's be honest, they're teetering on a lost season, John.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get to 4-2, tie up the Chiefs, knowing that they have another matchup against the Chiefs later in the season, then their playoff vibes go up without question. But again, when you watch them, there's something missing. And again, they've got some injuries this year, but heck,
it's coaching.
Every team in the league is dealing with it, but it's coaching without question. I mean, and Sean Payton, who I think is still young enough to want to jump back into it, looks at a great quarterback in Justin Herbert and says, "Yeah, I'll be interested in that guy." That's generally what a lot of these coaches look at. Okay, we've got the quarterback, let's go from there.
Yeah, and look, I mean, in a pretty good situation, because this team has talent. It's just, again, as we've seen in the past, just having talent doesn't equal success in the NFL, and sometimes, again, you gotta find the right guy to lead them. So that's going to do it for us here today. Like I said, we're going to watch very intently tonight. Hopefully, not fall asleep Thursday night football or any other primetime game. It feels like we've seen the last couple of weeks, but tomorrow we will be back, obviously, to recap that game and possibly talk a little bit of hockey, because guess what? The NHL season is alive and well and rolling, so I'm pretty excited about that. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at FullPressNFL, at FullPressRadio, and, of course, at FPC Radio Live for the show's account. So thank you very much, and we will talk to you tomorrow.